The old pickup truck bounced along the gravel road, kicking up dust clouds behind it. Maya pressed her face against the window, watching the massive iron gates grow larger as they approached. Her mother gripped the steering wheel tighter, clearly nervous about their first day at the Blackwood estate. "Remember what we talked about, sweetheart," her mother said softly. "I need this job. Mr. Blackwood is, well, he's not the most patient man. Try to stay out of his way today, okay?" Maya nodded, but her attention was already elsewhere. As they drove through the gates, she spotted something that made her heart skip. In the distance, beyond the sprawling mansion and perfectly manicured gardens, stood a large paddock. And inside that paddock was the most beautiful horse she had ever seen. The Stallion was massive, with a coat so dark it looked almost black in the morning light. But even from this distance, Maya could tell something was wrong. The horse was pacing back and forth, his head high and ears pinned back. Every few steps he would rear up and strike at the air with his front hooves, as if fighting an invisible enemy. "Mom, look at that horse," Maya whispered, but her mother was too busy parking near the servants' entrance to notice. Maya had always been different. At 17, she still struggled with things that seemed easy for other people. Making eye contact felt uncomfortable. Loud noises made her want to hide. Groups of people talking all at once made her feel like her brain was short-circuiting. But animals? Animals made sense to her in a way that people never did. Her mother hurried toward the main house, smoothing down her uniform and checking her watch. Maya followed slowly, but her eyes kept drifting back to the paddock. The horse was still pacing, still agitated. She could feel his distress from here like an electric current in the air. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Patterson, met them at the door. She was a stern-looking woman with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. "You must be the new cleaning lady. And this is your daughter?" "Yes, ma'am." "Maya won't be any trouble." "She's very quiet." Mrs. Patterson looked Maya up and down with a critical eye. "She'll need to stay out of Mr. Blackwood's way. He's got important business calls this morning, and he doesn't like distractions." As her mother was led inside for orientation, Maya found herself alone in the enormous kitchen. The house was like something from a movie. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and paintings that probably cost more than most people made in a year. But Maya barely noticed any of it. Through the kitchen window, she could see the paddock clearly now, and the horse looked even more distressed. She slipped out the back door and walked across the perfectly trimmed lawn. The closer she got, the more she could see what was happening. The Stallion wasn't just pacing randomly, he was trapped in a cycle of panic. Every time he tried to calm down, something would trigger him again. A bird flying overhead, a leaf blowing past, even his own shadow seemed to set him off. Maya had seen this before, in herself. The overwhelming feeling when everything was too much, too loud, too bright. The way small things could feel like huge threats when your nervous system was already overloaded. "What are you doing here?" The voice behind her was sharp and commanding. Maya turned to see a tall man in an expensive suit walking toward her. Even without being introduced, she knew this had to be Mr. Blackwood. He had the kind of presence that filled a room, or in this case, filled the entire yard. "I was just looking," Maya said quietly, not quite meeting his eyes. Mr. Blackwood's expression was a mixture of annoyance and amusement. "Looking at thunder? I hope you're not planning to get any closer. That animal is dangerous." "Thunder?" Maya glanced back at the Stallion. "Is that his name?" It was supposed to be, though disaster would be more accurate. Mr. Blackwood crossed his arms. "I bought him 6 months ago from a rescue. Thought I could have him trained for riding. 3 professional horse trainers later, and he's worse than when I got him." Maya watched Thunder rear up again, his hooves flashing in the sunlight. What happened to him before? Who knows? Abuse, neglect, trauma, the usual sob story. The point is, he's beyond help. I'm having him put down next week. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Put down? But he's just scared. Mr. Blackwood laughed, but there was no humor in it. Scared? That animal has put 3 grown men in the hospital. He's destroyed 2 stall doors and nearly kicked down a wall. The veterinarian, the animal behaviorist, the so-called horse whisperer, they all say the same thing. He's too far gone. Maya turned back to watch Thunder. The stallion had stopped pacing and was standing near the far fence, his whole body trembling. She could see the white foam around his mouth, the way his eyes rolled showing the whites. This wasn't aggression, this was pure terror. He's not mean, she said softly. He's overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? Mr. Blackwood's voice rose. He nearly killed his last trainer. The man has a broken rib and a concussion. Because people keep trying to force him. Look at how he's standing. His ears aren't really back in anger. They're back because he's trying to block out sounds. And see how he keeps looking at that tree line? He wants to run, but he can't, so all that flight response has nowhere to go. Mr. Blackwood stared at her. And you figured all this out by looking at him for 5 minutes? Maya shrugged. Sometimes. I feel like that too. When there's too much noise or too many people or when everything feels too fast and too much. You want to run, but you can't, so you just explode instead. For a moment, Mr. Blackwood's expression shifted. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe even recognition. But then his business mask slipped back into place. Well, aren't you the little horse expert? He said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. I suppose you think you could succeed where professionals with decades of experience have failed. Maya looked at Thunder again. The stallion had moved closer to their side of the fence as if drawn by their conversation. His ears were pricked forward now, focused on Maya's quiet voice. Maybe, she said simply. Mr. Blackwood's laugh was loud and harsh. Oh, this is rich. A teenage girl thinks she can tame a killer stallion. What's next, you going to tell me you speak horse? Thunder snorted and tossed his head at the sound of Mr. Blackwood's laughter. Maya noticed how the horse's entire body tensed at the sudden loud noise. I don't speak horse, Maya said calmly. But I understand what it feels like when the world is too much to handle. This is ridiculous, Mr. Blackwood said, but he didn't walk away. That animal is a menace. He's going to hurt someone. He's going to hurt someone because he's terrified, Maya replied. Scared animals lash out. It's not personal, it's survival. Mr. Blackwood studied her face as if trying to figure out what kind of game she was playing. And you think you can just walk up to him and suddenly he'll be gentle as a lamb? No. It would take time, and patience, and understanding that he's not broken. He's just been hurt. The silence stretched between them. Thunder had come even closer to the fence now, his dark eyes fixed on Maya. There was something in his gaze, a spark of curiosity that hadn't been there before. This is absurd, Mr. Blackwood finally said. Professional trainers couldn't handle him. What makes you think a kid with no experience could do any better? Maya met his eyes for just a moment before looking away. Because they were trying to make him be what they wanted. Maybe he needs someone who understands what he actually is. Mr. Blackwood shook his head, still chuckling. Unbelievable. Well, when you get tired of this fantasy, stay away from that paddock. I don't need a lawsuit when that horse tramples you. He started to walk away, then paused. And tell your mother I want those windows in the study cleaned twice. They looked streaky yesterday. As his footsteps faded, Maya found herself alone with Thunder again. The stallion was standing right at the fence now, his massive head lowered slightly. For the first time since she'd been watching him, he looked calm. Hey there, she whispered. I know how you feel. Thunder's ears flicked forward, and for just a moment, Maya could have sworn she saw something change in his eyes. Hope, maybe, or recognition, as if he understood that finally someone was really seeing him. Maya couldn't stop thinking about Thunder. That first night, she lay in bed in their small apartment above the garage, staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of their encounter. The way his ears had moved forward when she spoke. The moment when his wild eyes had seemed to focus on her with something that looked almost like understanding. Her mother came home exhausted from her first full day of work. That man is impossible, she said, dropping into their tiny kitchen chair. Nothing is ever good enough. The floors need to be mopped twice, the silver polished until it gleams, and heaven help you if you move anything on his desk even an inch. Did he say anything about me? Maya asked. He asked if you were that strange girl who thinks she can talk to horses. Her mother sighed. Maya, promise me you'll stay away from that animal. I can't lose this job. We need the money for your college. Applications and jobs like this don't come around often. But Maya couldn't promise that. The next morning, while her mother started her cleaning routine inside the massive house, Maya found herself walking toward the paddock again. She'd packed her sketchbook and a small folding chair she'd found in the garage. Thunder was in the same state as yesterday, pacing, agitated, his whole body radiating tension. But when Maya appeared at the fence line, something interesting happened. The stallion stopped mid-pace and turned his head toward her. His ears swiveled forward, and for just a moment his frantic energy seemed to settle. "Hey there, big guy," Maya said softly, settling into her chair about 10 feet from the fence. "I'm back." She didn't try to approach him. She didn't make sudden movements or hold out her hand like she'd seen people do in movies. Instead, she simply sat there and opened her sketchbook. Thunder watched her warily, but he didn't resume his desperate pacing. Maya began to draw. Not Thunder specifically, but the landscape around them, the rolling hills beyond the estate, the oak trees that lined the property, the way the morning light fell across the grass. As she drew, she hummed quietly under her breath, an old song her grandmother used to sing to her when she was little. After 20 minutes, Maya looked up to find Thunder standing much closer to the fence. He wasn't pressed against it, but he'd moved from the far side of the paddock to within 15 feet of where she sat. His head was lowered slightly, and his breathing seemed more relaxed. "That's better, isn't it?" she said without looking directly at him. "Quieter out here. No one yelling or trying to force you to do anything." She went back to her drawing, and Thunder stood there watching her. When a groundskeeper started up a loud lawnmower on the other side of the property, the stallion's head shot up and his body tensed. But instead of exploding into his usual panic, he looked toward Maya. She kept drawing, kept humming, and gradually Thunder's attention shifted back to her calm presence. "You're not crazy," Maya told him quietly. "You're just overstimulated. I get that way too sometimes. When there are too many people talking at once, or when the lights are too bright, or when someone keeps asking me questions and I can't process them fast enough. It makes you want to run or hide or just explode." Thunder snorted softly, almost like he was agreeing with her. This became their routine. Every morning while her mother worked inside, Maya would set up her chair by the paddock. She never tried to touch Thunder or call him over. She just sat there drawing or reading or sometimes just watching the clouds. And slowly, day by day, Thunder began to change. On the third day, he let her see him drink from his water trough. Before, he would only drink when no one was around, as if even that basic need made him feel vulnerable. On the fourth day, he actually lay down in the grass while she was there, something the stable hands said he'd never done during daylight hours. By the end of the first week, Thunder was spending most of Maya's visits standing near the fence. Not pressed against it, but close enough that she could see the details of his face. His eyes were dark and intelligent, and Maya noticed they weren't always wild anymore. When he looked at her, there was curiosity there, maybe even the beginning of trust. Mr. Blackwood, meanwhile, was watching from his office window. Maya could feel his eyes on them sometimes, though she never looked up at the house. She wondered what he was thinking. Probably waiting for Thunder to attack her so he could prove his point about the horse being dangerous. "He's still watching you," her mother said one evening. "Mr. Blackwood, Mrs. Patterson says he keeps asking questions about you." "About what? You're doing out there with that horse?" "What kind of questions?" "Whether you're getting too close, whether the horse seems different, whether you have any experience with animals." Her mother sat down across from Maya at their small table. "Honey, I know you feel sorry for that horse, but please be careful. These rich people, they're not like us. If something goes wrong, they'll blame us, not themselves." But Maya couldn't stop. Something was happening between her and Thunder, something important. She could see it in the way he moved now. His paces were less frantic. His head was held lower, more relaxed. When cars drove up the long driveway, he still tensed, but he would look toward Maya's spot by the fence as if checking to see if she was there. The breakthrough came on a Tuesday morning. Maya was sitting in her usual spot, sketching Thunder, as he grazed peacefully nearby. She'd been coming for 2 weeks now, and their routine was well established. She would arrive, set up her chair, and Thunder would gradually move closer until he was grazing just on the other side of the fence from where she sat. But this morning was different. As Maya drew, she became aware that Thunder had stopped grazing. She looked up to find him standing directly at the fence, his massive head lowered toward her. His dark eyes were fixed on her face, and there was something in them she'd never seen before. Not curiosity this time, but something deeper. Recognition, maybe, or connection. Very slowly, Maya stood up. Thunder didn't move away. She took a small step toward the fence, and still he stood there, watching her. Her heart was pounding, but she kept her movements slow and deliberate. "Hey, Thunder," she whispered. "You're not so scary after all, are you?" She reached out her hand, not to touch him, but to let him see it, to let him choose. Thunder looked at her hand, then back at her face. For a long moment, they just stood there, separated by the fence but connected by something neither of them fully understood. Then Thunder did something that took Maya's breath away. He stepped forward and gently pressed his nose against the fence, just inches from her outstretched hand. Not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "There you are," Maya whispered, tears gathering in her eyes. "I knew you were in there somewhere." "Well, I'll be damned." Maya spun around to find Mr. Blackwood standing about 20 feet behind her. She hadn't heard him approach. Thunder, startled by the sudden voice, jumped back from the fence, but he didn't bolt to the far side of the paddock like he would have 2 weeks ago. Instead, he stood his ground, watching both Maya and Mr. Blackwood with alert but not panicked eyes. "I've been watching you two," Mr. Blackwood said, walking closer. "Every morning for 2 weeks. Do you know what the so-called experts told me about that horse? That he was beyond help. That he'd never trust a human again." Maya didn't know what to say. She'd been caught, and now she'd probably gotten both herself and her mother in trouble. But Mr. Blackwood's expression wasn't angry. It was puzzled, maybe even impressed. "He hasn't had an episode in 4 days," he continued. "No rearing, no kicking at the fence, no destroying his stall. The stable hands are calling it a miracle." He looked at Maya with new interest. "What exactly are you doing out here?" "Just being with him," Maya said quietly. "Not trying to make him do anything. Just letting him know someone understands." Mr. Blackwood stared at her for a long moment, then at Thunder, who was still standing calmly by the fence. "That's it? You just sit here?" "Sometimes I draw, or read, or just think. But mostly I just exist, without expecting anything from him." For the first time since Maya had met him, Mr. Blackwood looked genuinely curious rather than dismissive. "And that works?" Maya glanced at Thunder, who was watching their conversation with intelligent eyes. "It's working so far." The morning after Mr. Blackwood discovered Maya's sessions with Thunder, everything felt different. Maya approached the paddock with nervous energy, wondering if she'd be allowed to continue. Her mother had spent the evening worrying aloud about losing their job, pacing their small apartment, and muttering about rich people and their unpredictable moods. But when Maya reached her usual spot, she found something unexpected. A proper wooden bench had been placed where her folding chair usually sat. A small side table held a thermos of hot chocolate and a plate of cookies, still warm from the oven. Thunder was waiting for her, standing closer to the fence than he'd ever been before. When he saw her approach, his ears pricked forward, and he took a step toward her. It was the first time Maya had seen him actively approach anything or anyone. "Good morning, Thunder," she said softly, settling onto the new bench. The hot chocolate was perfect, not too sweet, with just a hint of cinnamon. Someone had been paying attention to what she might like. As Maya sipped her drink, Thunder moved even closer. Yesterday's breakthrough seemed to have opened something in him. Where before he would graze or stand quietly while she sat nearby, today he seemed genuinely interested in her presence. He stretched his neck toward the fence, nostrils flaring as he caught her scent. Maya set down her cup and slowly stood. "What do you think, big guy?" Ready to try something new? She'd been thinking about this moment for days, planning exactly how she would approach it. Everything she'd read about traumatized animals emphasized the importance of letting them make the first move of never forcing contact. Very slowly, Maya extended her hand toward the fence, palm up. Thunder's ears flicked back and forth, not in anger, but in uncertainty. He stretched his neck forward, then pulled back. Forward again, then back. Maya didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. Finally, Thunder made his decision. He stepped forward and gently touched his nose to Maya's palm through the fence rails. His breath was warm and soft, and Maya could feel the whiskers around his muzzle tickling her skin. "There we go," she whispered, barely breathing. "See? Nothing scary here." Thunder held the contact for several seconds before stepping back. But instead of retreating to the far side of the paddock, he remained close, watching Maya with those intelligent dark eyes. That was amazing. Maya turned to find Mr. Blackwood approaching, but this time his footsteps were quieter, less commanding. Thunder tensed at the sound of his voice but didn't bolt. "Sorry," Mr. Blackwood said, noticing the horse's reaction. "I didn't mean to startle him." He lowered his voice to match Maya's quiet tone. "How long have you been working toward that?" "Since the first day," Maya replied. "But I wasn't working toward anything specific. I was just being here, letting him know I wasn't going anywhere." Mr. Blackwood moved slowly to stand beside Maya, keeping his distance from the fence. Thunder watched him warily but remained in place. The veterinarian said it would be impossible, that his trust had been too badly broken. "Maybe it was broken," Maya said, watching Thunder's ears swivel between her and Mr. Blackwood. "But broken things can heal if you give them time and space. And patience," Mr. Blackwood added, something thoughtful in his voice. "How did you know to do this? Do you have experience with horses?" Maya shook her head. "Not really. I've read some books, watched some videos online, but mostly I just understood how he felt." "What do you mean?" Maya was quiet for a moment, considering how to explain. "Sometimes the world feels too big, too loud, too overwhelming. People expect you to respond in certain ways, to do things on their timeline, to be normal. But when you can't do that, when you need things to be quieter or slower or more predictable, people get frustrated. They think you're being difficult or stubborn." She gestured toward Thunder, who was now grazing peacefully near the fence. Everyone who tried to train Thunder wanted to fix him quickly. They wanted to force him to get over his trauma and behave like a normal horse. But trauma doesn't work that way. You can't rush healing. Mr. Blackwood was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. "And you figured this out just by watching him?" "I figured it out by recognizing myself in him," Maya said simply. Thunder raised his head from the grass and looked directly at Maya. Then, to everyone's surprise, he walked straight to the fence and lowered his head toward her. This time, he didn't hesitate. He pressed his forehead against the fence rails, as close to Maya as he could get with the barrier between them. Maya reached up and very gently touched the white star on Thunder's forehead. The stallion closed his eyes and leaned into the contact. It was such a simple gesture, but Maya felt tears gathering in her eyes. This magnificent, powerful animal was choosing to trust her. "Incredible," Mr. Blackwood breathed. 3 professional trainers, and he nearly killed every one of them. But with you, with me, he doesn't have to perform," Maya said, her hand still resting gently on Thunder's forehead. "He doesn't have to be anything other than what he is." They stood in comfortable silence for several minutes, watching Thunder enjoy the gentle contact. Finally, Mr. Blackwood spoke again. "I owe you an apology," he said. "When I first saw you out here, I thought you were just a naive kid with romantic ideas about horses. I laughed at you." Maya shrugged. "Most people do." "That's not okay," Mr. Blackwood said firmly. "I made assumptions based on your age, and I was wrong. Dead wrong." He paused. "I'd like to ask you something, and I want you to think carefully before you answer." Maya looked at him curiously. I was planning to have Thunder put down next week. The veterinarian is scheduled to come on Friday. But seeing this, he gestured toward Thunder, who was still leaning into Maya's touch. I'm wondering if I should cancel that appointment. Maya's heart leaped, but she forced herself to think. Logically, he's made progress, but he's not healed yet. It would take more time, more patience, and there would be setbacks. Healing isn't a straight line. How much more time? I don't know. Maybe months, maybe longer. And even then, he might never be a normal riding horse. His trauma might always make him different. Mr. Blackwood considered this. But he could have a good life? A happy life? Maya looked at Thunder, who had opened his eyes and was watching their conversation with interest. I think so. But it would have to be on his terms, not ours. What would that look like? More space, maybe. Quieter surroundings. A routine he could count on. And people who understand that different doesn't mean broken. Mr. Blackwood was quiet for a long time. Finally, he pulled out his phone. Dr. Williams, this is Richard Blackwood. I need to cancel Thunder's appointment on Friday. No, I've changed my mind about putting him down. Yes, I'm sure. Maya felt a wave of relief so strong it nearly knocked her over. Thunder was going to live. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Mr. Blackwood said. I'm canceling the appointment, but I have conditions. I want you to work with him officially. I'll pay you for your time, and I want regular progress reports. If he becomes dangerous again, if he hurts someone, he won't, Maya said with quiet confidence. Not if we do this right. You sound very sure of that. Maya looked at Thunder, who was now resting his chin on the fence rail, completely relaxed. I am sure. Because I understand what he needs. And what he needs is what everyone needs. To be accepted for who he is, not who people think he should be. Mr. Blackwood watched the interaction between Maya and Thunder with fascination. Your mother mentioned you're applying to colleges. What, do you want to study? I was thinking about psychology maybe, or animal behavior. I haven't decided yet. What if I told you there might be other options? Better options? Maya looked at him questioningly. What you're doing here, it's not just impressive, it's revolutionary. I've spent a fortune on so-called experts, and none of them achieved in months what you've done in 2 weeks. Mr. Blackwood's business mind was clearly working. There are a lot of animals out there like Thunder. A lot of people who've given up on them. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe this is bigger than just one horse. Maybe you've found your calling. He looked at Thunder, then back at Maya. But first, let's see how far you can take this. Let's see if you can help Thunder become everything he's meant to be. Thunder whinnied softly, as if he understood every word. Maya laughed and rubbed his forehead gently. What do you think, Thunder? Ready to show the world that different can be beautiful? The stallion's answer was to press his nose against Maya's hand, sealing their partnership with the gentlest of touches. 3 weeks after Mr. Blackwood officially hired Maya to work with Thunder, the entire estate felt different. What started as a desperate attempt to save one troubled horse had become something much larger. Maya arrived each morning to find small improvements around Thunder's paddock, softer bedding, quieter water systems, even wind chimes that created gentle sounds instead of the harsh mechanical noises that used to startle him. But the biggest change wasn't in Thunder's environment. It was in Thunder himself. I still can't believe it, said Jake, the head groundskeeper, watching Maya lead Thunder around the paddock without even a halter. 6 months ago, that horse would have torn down the fence if anyone got this close. Now look at him, following you around like a giant puppy. Maya smiled, running her hand along Thunder's neck as they walked. The stallion stayed close to her side, his head lowered in complete trust. They'd developed their own language over the past few weeks. Subtle movements, gentle touches, quiet sounds that meant more than words ever could. He was never mean, Maya explained to Jake. He was just scared and overwhelmed. Once he realized I wasn't going to hurt him or force him to do things he wasn't ready for, he started to relax. Jake shook his head in amazement. The boss has been different too, you know. Ever since he started watching you work with Thunder. He actually said please when he asked me to trim the hedges yesterday. Please. I nearly fell off my ladder. Maya had noticed the changes in Mr. Blackwood as well. He came to watch their sessions almost daily now, but his presence had evolved from skeptical observation to genuine interest. He asked thoughtful questions about animal behavior and trauma recovery. More importantly, he listened to her answers. Maya, came a familiar voice from behind them. Mr. Blackwood approached slowly, his movements much more careful around Thunder than they'd been weeks ago. The stallion turned to look at him but showed no signs of stress. "Good morning, Mr. Blackwood," Maya said. Thunder nickered softly, as if greeting the man in his own way. "Richard," he corrected. "I think we're past formalities, don't you?" He stopped a respectful distance away, having learned to read Thunder's body language. "I have something I want to discuss with you. Both of you, actually." Maya noticed he'd included Thunder in that statement. A month ago, Mr. Blackwood, Richard, had spoken about the horse like he was a problem to be solved. Now he addressed Thunder like he was a participant in the conversation. "I've been thinking about what you said," Richard continued, "about there being other animals like Thunder who need this kind of help. I did some research and you're absolutely right. There are rescue organizations all over the country dealing with traumatized horses, dogs, even farm animals that have been written off as hopeless." Maya felt Thunder tense slightly beside her. A delivery truck was rumbling up the driveway, its engine loud and unfamiliar. Without thinking, she placed her hand on Thunder's shoulder and began humming softly, their signal that everything was okay. The stallion's ears flicked toward her voice and his tension melted away. Richard watched this interaction with fascination. "That's exactly what I'm talking about. What you just did, that's not something you can learn from a textbook. That's intuition, understanding, empathy, and action." The truck passed and Thunder returned his attention to their conversation. Maya was amazed at how far he'd come. A month ago, that same truck would have sent him into a panic that lasted hours. "I want to propose something," Richard said. "What if we created a program here, a sanctuary for animals that other people have given up on? You could work with them, develop methods, maybe even teach others how to do what you do." Maya's heart skipped. "You mean like a job? A real job?" "More than a job. A calling. A chance to prove that your approach works with more than just Thunder." Richard's business mind was clearly engaged, but there was something else in his voice. Genuine passion. "I've seen what you've accomplished here. I want to help you accomplish it on a bigger scale." Thunder lowered his head and nuzzled Maya's shoulder, as if he understood the importance of this moment. Maya scratched behind his ears, a gesture that would have been impossible just weeks ago. "What about college?" she asked. "My mom's been saving for years." "College will always be there," Richard said. "But this opportunity? This is once in a lifetime. Besides, who says you can't do both? I know people at the agricultural college, upstate. People who would be very interested in documenting your methods, maybe even developing new programs based on your work." Maya looked at Thunder, who was watching her with those intelligent dark eyes. "What do you think, big guy? Ready to help some other scared animals?" Thunder snorted and tossed his head, making Maya laugh. Richard smiled too. A real smile, not the polite business expression she was used to seeing. "There's something else," Richard said. "I've been thinking about how I run my business, how I treat my employees. Watching you with Thunder has made me realize that maybe my approach has been counterproductive." Maya wasn't sure what to say to that, so she just listened. "I built my company by being demanding, by pushing people to perform beyond their comfort zones. I thought that was strength." Richard watched Thunder grazing peacefully nearby. "But you've shown me that real strength might look different, that maybe getting the best out of someone means understanding what they need to succeed, not forcing them into a mold they don't fit." Over the following days, Maya watched Richard put this new philosophy into practice. She overheard him talking to his household staff differently, asking about their concerns instead of just giving orders. She saw him listening when Jake suggested a more efficient way to maintain the gardens. Most surprisingly, She heard him apologize to Mrs. Patterson for years of unrealistic expectations. "He's becoming a different person," Maya's mother said one evening over dinner. "Mrs. Patterson says she's never seen anything like it. Yesterday he asked her if she was happy working here. Actually asked if there was anything he could do to make her job easier." Maya smiled. "Sometimes all it takes is seeing things from a different perspective. He credits you for that, you know. Says watching you with Thunder taught him more about leadership than all his business school classes combined. The transformation wasn't just philosophical, it was practical too. Richard invested in upgrading the entire stable facility, creating quieter, more natural environments for horses. He brought in experts on animal psychology, but instead of hiring them to fix problems, he asked them to learn from Maya's methods. Most importantly, he started looking for their first rescue case. "I found him," Richard announced one morning, holding up his tablet to show Maya photos of a scarred, thin horse standing alone in a corner of an overcrowded rescue facility. "His name is Storm, 8 years old, rescued from a neglect situation. 3 families have tried to adopt him and brought him back. The rescue says he's aggressive and untrainable." Maya studied the photos. Even through the screen, she could see the fear in Storm's eyes, the way he held himself apart from the other horses. "He looks like Thunder did when I first saw him, scared and alone." "Exactly. The rescue is 3 hours away. They're willing to transport him here if we're serious about taking him." Richard looked at Maya seriously. "But this would be different from Thunder. This wouldn't be just you and me watching. If this program is going to work, we need to document everything, show that your methods can be replicated." Maya felt a flutter of nervousness. Working with Thunder had been private, personal. The idea of having people watch and evaluate her work was intimidating. Thunder appeared at the fence as if sensing her uncertainty. He pressed his nose against her hand, warm and reassuring. "I don't know if I can do it with people watching," Maya admitted. "You don't have to decide right now," Richard said gently. "But think about this. How many horses like Storm are out there right now? How many animals are sitting in rescues or worse, scheduled to be put down, because no one understands what they really need?" Maya looked at Thunder, thinking about how close he'd come to that same fate. If she hadn't been there that day, if her mother hadn't taken this job, Thunder would be gone. How many other Thunders were running out of time? "Okay," she said quietly. "Let's bring Storm home." Richard's face lit up with excitement and pride. "Really, you're sure?" Maya nodded, feeling Thunder's reassuring presence beside her. "But we do this my way. Quietly, patiently on his timeline, not ours." "Absolutely. Your way. Always your way." As Richard walked back toward the house to make arrangements, Maya remained by the fence with Thunder. The stallion seemed to sense that their quiet world was about to expand. "We're going to help others now," she told him softly. "Show them that different doesn't mean broken, that patience can work miracles. Are you ready to be a teacher?" Thunder whinnied softly and nuzzled her cheek as if he understood that their greatest adventure was just beginning. 6 months later, Maya stood in the newly renovated barn watching Storm take his first tentative steps toward the hay feeder. The progress had been slow, much slower than with Thunder, but it was real. Storm no longer flinched when Maya entered his stall, and yesterday he had actually eaten from her hand for the first time. "He's beautiful," said Dr. Chen, the animal psychologist who had been documenting Maya's work. "The transformation in his body language over these past months has been remarkable. When he first arrived, every muscle was tense with fear. Look at him now." Maya smiled, watching Storm's ears prick forward as Thunder appeared in the adjoining paddock. The 2 horses had formed an unlikely friendship, with Thunder somehow understanding that Storm needed a calm, steady presence. It was as if Thunder had become a therapy horse for other traumatized animals. "Thunder's been the best teacher," Maya said. "Storm watches him and learns that this is a safe place, that humans here don't hurt or force or demand. They just exist alongside you until you're ready for more." The barn had been completely redesigned based on Maya's insights. Softer lighting, quieter ventilation systems, and natural materials that created a calming environment. But more importantly, it housed 5 other rescued animals now: horses, a donkey, and even a cow that had been saved from a neglect situation. "Maya," called a familiar voice from the barn entrance. Richard approached with a tablet in his hand, his face glowing with excitement. "You need to see this." Maya walked over, Storm following her partway before stopping to investigate a new hay net. The scarred horse still maintained his boundaries, but they were much smaller now. "What is it?" Maya asked. Richard held up the tablet, showing her a video. "This aired on the morning news yesterday. Watch." On the screen, Maya saw herself working with Luna, a mare they'd rescued 2 months ago. The camera captured the moment when Luna finally allowed Maya to brush her coat, the first time the horse had tolerated grooming since her rescue. Maya remembered that breakthrough clearly, how Luna had stood trembling but trusting, finally allowing someone to care for her. "The story's gone viral," Richard said, scrolling through comments and shares. 3 million views and counting. But more importantly, look at this. He switched to his email, showing Maya dozens of messages. "Rescue organizations from across the country wanting to learn your methods. Families asking if you can help their traumatized pets. Even a few international inquiries." Maya felt overwhelmed. When she'd agreed to expand their program, she'd imagined helping a few more animals like Thunder and Storm. She hadn't expected this level of attention. "There's more," Richard continued, his voice gentle as he noticed her expression. "The Agricultural College Upstate has officially offered you a full scholarship. They want to create a new program in trauma-informed animal therapy, with you as the lead researcher. But I don't have any formal training," Maya protested. "You have something better than formal training," said Dr. Chen, joining their conversation. "You have intuition, empathy, and results. The academic world is very interested in studying and documenting your methods. This could change how we approach animal rehabilitation worldwide." Maya looked around the barn at their small family of rescued animals. Each one had their own story, their own timeline for healing. Storm was still learning to trust. Luna had made huge progress but still had difficult days. Thunder, their success story, was now helping newer arrivals feel safe. "I don't want to leave them," Maya said quietly. "You wouldn't have to," Richard assured her. "The college program would be based here, at least partially. You could continue working with our animals, while teaching others and researching new approaches. It's the best of both worlds." Thunder appeared at his stall door, nickering softly when he saw Maya. She walked over and stroked his neck, remembering that first day when he was scheduled to be put down. Now he was healthy, happy, and helping other animals heal. "What do you think, Thunder? Should we teach other people how to help animals like you?" Thunder pushed his nose against her hand, then turned to look at Storm, who was now standing much closer than usual, clearly wanting to be part of the group but still maintaining his comfort zone. "Actually," Maya said slowly, "there's something I want to try first." She walked to the center of the barn and sat down on a hay bale, just like she used to do by Thunder's fence. "Come here, Storm. No pressure, no expectations. Just come if you want to." Dr. Chen started to speak, but Richard held up a hand, understanding that something important was happening. Storm looked at Maya, then at Thunder, then back at Maya. Slowly, carefully, he took a step forward, then another. For the first time since his arrival, Storm approached a human voluntarily, walking all the way across the barn to stand beside Maya's hay bale. "There's my brave boy," Maya whispered, not reaching out, not demanding anything, just acknowledging his choice. Storm lowered his head until it was level with Maya's, close enough that she could feel his breath. Then, in a moment that brought tears to everyone's eyes, he gently rested his forehead against Maya's shoulder. "That's it," Dr. Chen said quietly. "That's what we need to teach the world. That healing happens through choice, not force. Through patience, not pressure." Richard was already making notes on his tablet. "We'll start small, a few selected students working with our animals here, document everything, develop a curriculum, show that this approach works consistently. Over the following weeks, Maya found herself stepping into a role she never could have imagined. She worked with their first group of student interns, teaching them how to read animal body language, how to create safe spaces, how to wait for trust instead of demanding it. The hardest part for most people, Maya explained to her students, as they watched her work with a newly arrived dog, is doing nothing. We want to fix things quickly, show progress immediately, but trauma doesn't work on our timeline. One of her students, a veterinary science major named Alex, raised his hand. But how do you know when to push forward and when to wait? Maya smiled, remembering asking herself the same question months ago. You listen, not just with your ears, but with your eyes, your instincts, your heart. The animals will tell you what they need if you pay attention. The success stories began to multiply. Storm learned to trust grooming and eventually allowed a saddle, though he made it clear he wasn't interested in being ridden. Luna became confident enough to go on trail walks. A rescued dog named Buster, who had been labeled aggressive, became a therapy dog for other traumatized animals. But the biggest transformation was still happening in Richard. The billionaire who had once laughed at a teenage girl's compassion had become one of the most vocal advocates for patient, trauma-informed animal care. He spoke at conferences, funded research, and used his business connections to spread awareness. You know what's funny? He said to Maya one evening as they watched thunder and storm grazing together in the sunset. I built my fortune by being aggressive, demanding, impatient. I thought that was strength. But you've shown me that real strength looks like what you do every day. Quiet persistence, unwavering patience, meeting others where they are instead of where you want them to be. Maya's mother joined them at the fence, still amazed by how their lives had changed. I used to worry that Maya was too sensitive for this world, she said. Now I realize the world needs more people like her. As the months passed, Maya's program grew into something bigger than anyone had imagined. Students came from universities across the country to learn her methods. The success stories were documented and published, changing how animal rescues and therapy programs operated worldwide. But Maya's favorite moments were still the quiet ones. Early morning sessions with new arrivals, sitting patiently while frightened. Animals decided whether to trust. The first time a traumatized horse allowed touch. The moment when an animal chose connection over fear. We're changing lives, Richard said one morning, showing Maya yet another success story from a rescue organization that had implemented their methods. Maya looked around at their extended family of rescued animals, at the students learning to heal through patience, at the man who had transformed from skeptic to believer to advocate. Thunder walked over and rested his chin on her shoulder, the same gesture that had marked their first breakthrough so many months ago. No, Maya said quietly, stroking Thunder's neck. We're not changing lives. We're saving them. One frightened heart at a time. The program that started with one angry billionaire, one autistic teenager, and one traumatized stallion had become a movement. But at its heart, it remained the same simple truth Maya had discovered that first day by Thunder's fence. That healing happens when someone finally sees you for who you really are, accepts you without trying to change you, and gives you the time and space to choose trust over fear. And sometimes that's all it takes to change the world.